I'm David Lowery, the writer and director of Mother Mary. And I'm here with IndieWire on the Filmmaker Toolkit podcast.
I want to make sure I have this right. The origin kind of was like you were about to go into Peter Pan and Wendy, and this is the way it was described in the press notes. You're almost having a conversation with yourself at this point in your career.
Definitely. I mean, we were making The Green Knight. We were in Ireland. We were filming it, and I just had one of those moments where, I mean, this happens on every movie where you're just like, what am I doing? Both creatively, but also like, you're just thinking about what you've, been. I think every movie has some moment where you just are like, this is an insane thing to be doing right now. And what have I gotten myself into? And what am I about to get myself into? And have I made the right choices, not only in like my career, but in life? And those moments come and go and they ebb and flow and they pass. But this one, lingered just long enough on a sleepless night that I started to write a script about it.
You went Green Knight right into Peter Pan, right?
We were editing The Green Knight while location scouting for Peter Pan. So I was like in hotel rooms editing late at night while driving around.
So I'm making this Disney movie while I'm like finishing this.
Yeah. And I mean, those movies are very connected to me.
Yeah.
There's not a huge, obviously one is a big 4-quadrant Disney movie and the other one is The Green Knight, but they are very connected. And so it's not like I was making a huge leap from one to the other. And I've been able to navigate those leaps pretty well. Like I feel very comfortable doing so. But I think for whatever reason, and it happens constantly when you're making movies, when you're doing anything, I think, in any field, you just wonder if you're making the right choices or you're doing the right thing, or if you're just, you just wonder. And out of that wondering, this movie was sort of forged.
There's something inside of you. Let's cast her out.
Because Mother Mary, and I don't want to oversimplify here, but the kind of crisis she's in is this kind of like collected weight of where she's become as an artist. And almost there's this need for like going back to something clearer.
For me, it's sort of like, I think back to my favorite film of mine that I've made is Pioneer, a short film that we made in 2 days. And it was the happiest, it's not the happiest I've ever been making a movie, but it was the first and maybe only movie where everything was exactly what I wanted it to be. Because normally on movies, they change and they develop while you're in production, you lose a location, whatever. With Pioneer, everything was in a bedroom with 2 actors. So I was like, it turned out exactly the way I wanted. And it's the film that I feel most, it's not even the film that most represents me, because all of my films represent me, but because it's only 20 minutes, it's very encapsulated and very focused. And I always am thinking like, gosh, I just wish I could get back to making something like that again, because I just loved it so much. And Mother Mary is likewise, as a character, wanting to get back to her roots. And to do that, she goes and finds the person that she began her career with.
You really envision this as a two-hander, which it is.
Mm-hmm. Again, going back to Pioneer, a two-hander, two actors in a room.
Very dialogue-driven in a room, something that, like, from a production standpoint, like Pioneer would be easy and simple. Not that writing a script like that is, or finding or working with actors is, but that was, for all the places that this goes, that was kind of what you thought you were doing, right?
I really wanted to make something simple. I wanted to really have the opportunity to really work with actors.
I laugh because for once people see this movie.
Yes, I know. I've been laughing. I've been laughing for quite some time. And Green Knight was a huge movie. That it was smaller than the Disney movies budgetarily, but felt immense. And then we went into Peter Pan and Wendy, which was gigantic. And on both of those movies, there were a couple scenes where I just had 1 or 2 days in a room with 2 actors and was just having so much fun. And I thought, why limit it to 1 or 2 days? Let's make the entire movie out of this.
This is all about you. What song are you singing?
I'll play it for you if you want.
I don't want to break my streak.
For what?
Of not listening to your music.
Obviously, one thing that happens is the connection between these 2 characters becomes something that defies time, space, reality, and we'll talk about that. But I have to admit, I feels like maybe one of the other things that happened here was and you tell me, was the idea that we would hear and see Mother Mary perform, right? That wasn't part of the original conception.
I mean, there was the original conception, and then very quickly the idea of getting to treat myself to the luxury of creating a pop star and putting on a pop show. That seemed like fun. So instantly my maximalist tendencies started to creep in. You know, the second I decided, that first night I started writing it, that she was going to be a pop star, I knew that that would ultimately be something that we were going to have to tackle.
And in that initial script, how far did you go with writing these descriptions of songs or the roles of songs?
I mean, from the beginning all the way through production, the script would include the title. It would include the way those songs were meant to feel. Burial, the first song you hear in the movie, was described as a dark industrial pop song, and that's pretty much what it is. And Holy Spirit was something that was meant to be soaring, both literally and metaphorically, and that's what that is. But that was about it. And some of the songs that are in the movie were not part of the movie at all. They were written for the film, and I heard them and was like, okay, we have to find a place for these songs now too, because these are all incredible. It
seems like a touchstone was this playlist that you had. Did you have? And I don't want to be literal here in terms of the influence, like, oh, she's Taylor Swift, or we'll obviously get into the Madonna and the Catholicism of it all. But I wonder if you could talk about what that playlist was and what that represented to you. And can we get it on Spotify now?
Well, it's not that big. It was interesting to hear people talk about it, because to me it was, I put it together as a reference point, but it was less important to me than like the lookbook that I would also send out with it, because I didn't want to have too many musical touchstones that we were like leaning on. I wanted us to sort of like be operating in the darkness. But of course, like the tone of the movie, music is very important to that. And so a lot of the things that I remember putting on the playlist most of all was like film scores. There was like Michael Nyman pieces on there. There was Max Richter, Johan Johansson. Things like that were really important, and I think conveyed the tone of what the movie was going to be. And then a lot of my own personal favorite songs, like definitely Green Lights from Lorde, which is one of my all-time favorites, was on there. A lot of Twigs was on that playlist. Certainly Charlie and Taylor Swift and all of the other pop stars that gradually became, took on an outsized influence as we were putting our superstar together. But for me, it was really that playlist was more about capturing the tone of the movie, which was separate from Mother Mary as a character and as a performer.
I want to give a false sense that you would look at this character and think Madonna, but but there is something here that, and I think we're roughly the same age and grew up in the same world in which, and I grew up in a Catholic family too.
So you were also not allowed to listen to Madonna.
My parents had left the church. I don't think
Mine had not.
My parents had already had some issues with the church in the 60s and 70s. But I do remember this moment in which she's playing with Catholic imagery.
Yeah.
And this is something that's very much in the culture. And I have a feeling that maybe somewhere in a young David Lowery, that was.
It was absolutely influential to me, even though I was not allowed to listen to Madonna. Like, my parents were very anti-Madonna, and they were very explicit that she was being sacrilegious, not only in the way in which she used that iconography, but in her very name. And as someone, even as a young child who sort of balked at the strictures of the Catholic Church, I was very excited about that. Like, I really liked the idea of taking that iconography and twisting it. And, you could say that the combination of the sacred and the profane is what makes Madonna so captivating, but really I think she is illuminating what's the sacred in a really specific way, and there's a degree of reverence and respect from my perspective now with what she does and how she uses that iconography that actually makes Catholicism cooler. Like Catholics should all embrace Madonna, and because that is such a huge part of my upbringing. I'm no longer a practicing Catholic by any means. I left the church a long time ago, but it is a part of me, and that iconography is in my bones. And as this movie grew more autobiographical, it got more and more Catholic as it went on. And so it was very important to make our character sort of emblematic of that to the largest degree possible, which was in her name.
When I think about the challenges of doing what you wanted to do with music here, I think of, and I'm sure you can add to this, but one, writing a pop song's not easy.
Yes.
If it was, more people would do it. Two, these songs are the product of a very distinct pop icon that you're fictionally building. Yeah. And she's got this arc here. I mean, this is part of what's going on in her career, what's going on. There's a musical aspect to this where she's going to be expressing things. And then I think, and it's something that Greta brought up with Barbie, and it's something that I hadn't thought about, it's one thing to get big people to do these things. And you think, yes, I got Charlie, I got Jack, I got Twigs. But there's another thing of like, oh, they're willing to do this versus like they're willing to do something that you could use for this. They could write a song that might not fit, or there's a degree of what you need out of these songs. So clearly you were able to pull it off, but there's a big divide here of what you're going to need from this. And that's something that David Lowery can't sit in a room and supply himself.
I'm a frustrated piano player who just like cannot hold a note for the life of me. And we could have asked for a couple songs and gotten them and stopped there, because the first demos that Jack and Charlie gave us were incredible.
Was Jack Antonoff and Charlie XCX the starting? Was that the first collaboration?
In fact, they were on board. I think prior to the cast, or at least I was meeting with them prior to the cast. We knew that music was going to need a long runway on this movie.
So they're getting involved in a much more ground level type thing.
But it is very different from writing a single for a soundtrack, because these have to be narrative elements. We have to build scenes around them. They have to have a certain structure that befits the movie, not only like the way we shoot it, but where those songs are going to fall. And then the other ingredient was we had an artist who had to perform them. It wasn't a Charlie XCX song. It was a Mother Mary song. And so Anne had to really be a part of that process and figure out a way to make those songs personal to her. It was the arc of the music in this movie was long and windy. It was a very windy arc, because we had a lot of great songs very early on. And Anne went into the studio and recorded them, and we went into production and we had rough drafts of them, but we didn't feel any of them were ready to be filmed yet. And to get them to that place took a lot of fine tuning. It wasn't like we went in and like started over from scratch ever. We took these songs that were great and did indeed fit the template the screenplay described, but then we had to, the best way I can say is like we had to figure out a way for Anne to feel that they were coming from her. Mm-hmm. And part of that was learning how to sing them and learning how to sing like a pop star for her. Like, she's an incredible singer, but this was an entirely different style of singing.
This isn't Les Mis.
This is not Les Mis, exactly. I would have been happy if we got the songs to 100%. And Anne is someone who's like, these songs have to reach 220%. And I don't know how to define her, quantify that extra 110% that she knew that she could achieve. But she kept pushing and kept pushing. Even after we'd shot the concert sequences, she went back to the studio and re-recorded the songs multiple times to get them to that place. And then we would cut those back into the movie. And it was a long process that took, we started working with Jack and Charlie in the fall of 2022, and we're sitting here talking now in 2026. And I think we did the final touches on one of the songs 5 weeks ago. So it really was.
I went to A24 and they were like downloading the DCP for me to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they were like, "There's this note from David. Songs aren't done."
It was an intense process and a really illuminating one for me, because the great thing about all great art is that it feels effortless. But as a fan of music, not being a musician myself, I underestimated the amount of intense craft that goes into it. I remember watching a video of Ariana Grande recording and just watching the way in which she built a song in their studios with the mic, just hearing things. You'd listen to a playback and I was like, oh, there's so much going on in these seemingly effervescent hits that the audience just doesn't understand how much work goes into it. But that's why they're great. That's why these artists are so good.
Is it music exploder, song exploder? Because
yeah,
that's that thing where it's like I start to understand the pop music that I love in the way that I understand filmmaking.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a useful expose into that process.
It feels like almost as much as music, if not more so, movement as a whole was kind of very key for her and
for myself
and defining this character. I wonder if you could talk about that.
It was something that we knew that dance was going to be a big part of the movie because there's a break in the middle of the movie for an extended dance sequence. So that was always something that she knew she was going to have to undertake. The training.
She's got to dance the song to beat all song. Like there's this song that she's what she's going to perform, and she's saying this is the greatest song ever.
Greatest song ever written in the history of songs.
Which as far as I know, we do not hear in the movie, correct? Is that
I'll leave that for the audience to decide.
Okay, well, then we'll come back to the end. Yeah. But in the middle, Michaela's character makes her dance it, right? That's what we're talking about. That's what I said.
And that in and of itself was an intense piece of choreography that Anne spent months training for. Like, she's a very physically skilled actress, but what was required of that scene was something she again knew. She's like, this is beyond my capabilities, and I need to be able to look like I've been doing this for 20 years, which I have not. So she basically packed 20 years worth of dance training into 3 months. And that was part of it. But then the other part is like Mother Mary is a character who expresses herself through movement. She is, as Anne saw her, she was as much a dancer as she was a singer. And that part of her voice she's been deprived of. She's unable to express herself until that scene. And so the way in which she carries herself, her movement, her entire, physicality, even though she's not dancing, has a sense of, dare I say, choreography to it that she was developing entirely on her own, separate to the literal dancing that she does later in the film. One of the things that I learned on this was how incredible it is to have a choreographer on set, because so much of my job as a director involves blocking and movement. And when you have someone who is trained in the art of movement to explain to an actor exactly how to hit a mark in a way that will make everything click into place just right, I lack that language. I'm learning it now because I now learn that I've learned from my choreographer Danny that that's an important part of the process, or how to make that part, how to facilitate that process better. But it was such a gift to have her on set. And again, she came for the dance and stayed for the rest of the movie because it was we realized that choreography and movement was such a key part of every aspect of this film. At the end of the day, we had, the dancers who were on stage with Anne in scenes because it was just wonderful to have actors, and again, I'll call them actors because they were acting, who knew how to move around a camera in a very specific way. And that was such a gift to have them on set.
I imagine you were like me, of Michaela Cole as an incredible writer. I mean, I May Destroy You is one of the best television shows in the last forever.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how she got involved in this.
I had been an immense fan of hers already, but I like to tell her that, and it's true, that it was because she was in Star Wars, and as a huge Star Wars fan, the fact that she was in The Last Jedi that's where she caught my eye. But in truth, Star Wars did lead me to chewing gum, and then that led me, of course, when I May Destroy You came out, I was actually in quarantine in Newfoundland, Canada, where we were location scouting for Peter Pan and Wendy, and we had to, per Canadian rules, like stay in a hotel for 2 weeks before we could leave our hotel to go scouting. And so I watched that show there and watched it repeatedly and was just, again, this is one of the best things I've ever seen. This transcends film and television. It feels like something new, someone using this medium in a way that is uncategorizable. And she just, you can't shake her. It's an incredible, what she does both as a writer and a performer and as a director is really, it's next level. And so when we were putting this movie together and thinking about the different combinations of cast and who might fit in this world, a lot of it was me thinking who can I imagine saying these words? And I'd written the script with British actors in mind. After, again, working on The Green Knight and Peter Pan and Wendy, I was in a very Anglophile state of mind. And I thought of Michaela. I thought of her for both parts. I think she could have played both. I found a video on her, I don't know what it's from, of her singing on YouTube, and was like, she could be an incredible pop star. And so we sent the script over, and I'm trying to remember the exact, this was like sometime in, the summer, around the time I was meeting Jack and Charlie. And either I can't remember if she read it but wasn't able to meet, or she was busy one way or the other on something. And so then a couple of weeks went by, I met Anne, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, this feels right for Mother Mary. I feel like she needs to be Mother Mary. And then a couple of weeks after that, Michaela's agent reached out and said that she really just wanted to meet and talk about the script, not about being in it, just to talk about the script.
Because she liked the script.
She loved it so much that she wanted to just know who I was, like, where did this come from? Who wrote these words?
I can't think of a more intimidating meeting.
It was
Nicole wants to talk about my.
It was a Zoom.
Writing.
It was a Zoom meeting, and it wasn't intimidating at all. I was a little bit starstruck because I just, again, as a writer, like, her writing is so incredible and so incisive, and so I am in awe of what she does. But we very quickly we realize we like a lot of the same things, and we have similar tastes. And by like a lot of the same things, usually when I meet people, it's movies.
Mm-hmm.
And with her, it was things like quantum physics. Like, we both like she was like, all this talk about quantum physics in the movie, and there used to be a lot more of it.
She got the spooky action.
She got it.
Yeah,
and she reminded me, like, and I'd forgotten this, but in I May Destroy You, there's a brief reference to spooky action as well. Yeah. So we talked about, our families, about life and death. And as we were speaking, I just was like, I can imagine you saying these lines, and I don't want to presuppose that you would want to. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, she knew by that point that Anne was going to play Mother Mary. And so it wasn't even like that we were meeting to suss each other out. But by the end of that Zoom, I was just like, I think this is exactly the right fit. And the idea of the two of them together just was instantly so charged and so dynamic. I couldn't shake it. So then we just kept texting, and then she came to LA for the Black Panther 2 premiere, and we met up the next morning, and basically that was it.
I saw in the notes you're calling the ghost Red Woman. Is that is that an internal thing?
That's what we called it in the script, because it was just, we didn't know what she would look like.
Yeah.
I had done a couple of pieces of concept art where it was sort of like a shimmery, vague human shape. And I tried out a lot of different colors just to see if we could do something that wasn't red. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, red is, you can't beat it.
The idea more that the connection between these two is something cosmic, time, space defying.
Yeah.
Was that just something, as you're really kind of zeroing in on the connection between these two, it kind of naturally felt like something cinematically, world building wise, that was something you wanted to go beyond two amazing actors in a room talking?
At a certain point, I got to a scene in the screenplay that's in the movie where I could have just stopped the movie. We could have reached the end. And I felt that we hadn't dug deep enough. This happened on A Ghost Story too, where I was like, I think we're at the end now, but I don't feel like the movie's over. So where do we go from here? And in A Ghost Story, time and space fall away. And in this movie, all of a sudden, all of the language to a large extent does fall away. And the connection between the two characters is almost, it has to take supernatural form because there's no other way to explicate it. I could talk all day about phenomenology and the idea that both characters say at a certain point, which is that, I know what I saw wasn't real, but I also know that I saw it, and both of those things are true. And I love the idea of sort of addressing phenomena not on a objective level, but on a subjective level, because then you get to the emotional truth. That's what that whole practice is all about, of phenomenology. I also like the idea of taking the energy between two people. Like the energy between you and I is existing right now as we're talking, and we're transferring some very gentle, pleasant energy back and forth. But when you're in a really intense relationship, that energy can, go from red hot to ice cold. And you can ruin someone's day by just taking your energy and foisting it upon them with a well-timed statement or an insult or something like that. And I wanted to take that energy and render it tangible. And for me, that naturally just took the form of a ghost.
I also want to talk about FKA Twigs here.
Yeah.
I'm assuming her performance was all practical, right? That was
100%. Yeah.
Some wonderful sound effects as well.
The sound effect is real too.
Oh,
when you hear like a crack of like her shoulder, it's like,
oh, Jesus Christ.
It is actually like, it's, I was like, our sound team took it out at one point. It's like, no, put that back in. It's incredible.
Maybe one of the best manifestations in a physical performance of possession. But I'm wondering if you talk about working with her, because that's also one of these things where what's released out of her becomes where this movie's going. But I'm wondering if you talk about because she also got involved in the music.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you talk about both that scene, but also her involvement.
I was listening to her a lot while I was writing the screenplay. I could have probably reached out to her early on about working on the music, but again, I wanted the feeling of the movie to be distinct from Mother Mary, at first at least. Like I wanted Mother Mary's music to not sound like the music I was listening to while I was writing.
And her music is so distinct.
Her music is so distinct.
It's hard to imagine
exactly
that being her doing that.
Exactly. And so, but I wanted her to be a part of this movie. And so when we were casting, I just thought of her I was like, she has to play this role. It's perfect. And thankfully she instantly said yes. The scene is not, if you were to look at the script, it's pretty much what was, word for word. The dialogue didn't really change that much. But the entire tenor of that scene changed with her in it. And the way we developed it together, I think we got together like on a weekend before we shot it to work out the blocking. And it blossomed in the most terrifying way. I think when
is she just that physically gifted?
I encourage anyone listening to this to just go look up any performance videos of her on her current tour.
Okay.
It is next level.
Okay.
Like we are scratching the faintest of surfaces of what she's capable of. So we were really building that scene together with her and using the dialogue in the script as a map for what that possession was going to look like. It's funny, that scene is set at the hotel that I was staying at while we were shooting The Green Knight, and which is an old hotel in Wicklow that was maybe haunted. It felt like it was haunted while we were there. I didn't see any ghosts, but it felt like there were some ancient Celtic spirits there. And while we were staying there, Ariana Grande was also staying there because she was doing the Dublin leg of her tour. And I just imagined like her being awakened in the middle of the night before having to go on stage in front of like 70,000 people because there was a ghost in the room. And that sort of led to this seance scene that was initially written to feel more like a slumber party that takes a dark turn, but there was a lot more, it was more fun. It was like more of maybe even more of a Sam Raimi vibe to it. But as we started to develop it, it became, again, the dialogue that Twigs speaks, which is she is giving voice to the spirit. She's giving voice to the feeling that has vacated Sam's soul and heart. And so she is, in effect, she is Sam's emotions made text. And the tone of it became so sad and so heartbreaking. And when we were doing the score, when we were working with Daniel Hart on the score for that scene, again, because it's a possession scene, his instincts were like, okay, let's score this like a horror film. And I was like, no, this should feel like the bittersweet, romantic. It should feel like a love story, like a love scene. Score it like a sad love scene, like an overture in Dr. Zhivago or something like that. That's what this should feel like. And that was the final step that illuminated what that scene was for us. But it was incredible working with Twigs for those 4 or 5 days. And I feel like it was probably at the midpoint of the shoot too. And I feel like that changed the rest of the film. Like, I think I was probably like, out of the 40 days of our first leg of production, that was like probably around day 19 or 20. And that really cast a spell over everything that happened afterwards. And the rest, it changes the movie too. Like, that really sets the movie off in a new direction.
We're talking about movement so much about Mother Mary and then Twigs as Imogen, but the ghost, the fabric, it becomes this whole other thing, a whole other element of choreography. I'm wondering if you could talk about, I guess I'm now curious about how you did it, if it's all practical.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to imagine, even regardless of how you did it, I can't imagine that's all in your head. Like that's got to be
it was a long process of figuring out what we wanted this spirit to look like. And we, again, a lot of concept art. At one point I got a bunch of modeling clay and just started like making abstract shapes that sort of captured what I was looking for. I did lots and lots and lots of sketches and gradually started to figure out what the parameters were, because at a certain point, if we pushed it too far, it would just look like a person, like a humanoid specter. And that didn't ever quite feel right. And the reference point that I kept giving people was the T-1000 at the end of Terminator 2 when it falls into the molten lava and is trying to, it's taking every form that it had been in and just permutating like rapidly amongst all these different looks. And I was like, this is a spirit that doesn't know what it needs to look like. It's trying to find its form, and we need to see that it can't quite figure it out. I also love that I wanted it to start off as something very physical. It's like a mass of wet tissue, human tissue, like a cyst on the floor, like a breathing cyst. But then it transforms into something over the course of the film that is incredibly beautiful. And ultimately its final form, well, I won't spoil it, but we see its final form, and it's yearning for that the entire time, but we need to see that process. And by using fabric and wind, the combination of the two, we were able to create something that was entirely fluid. It's not liquid, but it feels like liquid. It feels liquidy. It feels like smoke. It's something that has a tangible presence. You could reach out and touch it, and yet it can't ever take a constant solid form. The way we achieved it, I found this artist who's based in Brooklyn named Daniel Wurtzel, who works with fabric, and he does these incredible installations with everything from like, a few yards to an entire football stadium of fabric that he then sculpts with wind and air and fans. And he has these custom built tables that he uses to keep fabric just constantly in this state of flux. And so we collaborated with him to create the spirit and spent about a week just filming fabric. And then that was all composited into the footage that we'd already shot on set with the actors. But all of that was done practically. And some of it was, choreographed very specifically, and other times it felt like a fabric laboratory. We were just saying, what can we get? What sort of effects can we create with this?
And then there's a performance, and I'd love for you to talk about that song, and also an opportunity to also talk a little bit about shooting the concert. I think this is the longest performance, right? Like on stage.
It's probably like 2 minutes. Or it's funny because we all of the songs, when you listen to the soundtrack, are 4 or 5 minutes long. And
is that something you guys are going to put out soon, or is that like so that we hear all
it'll be out within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful vinyl that's coming out that I'm very excited about. The concerts were a separate leg of production because we knew that we couldn't roll out of the barn on day 40 and into a stadium on day 41 and just start shooting a stadium concert scene. The movie was too intense for that. We had to give Anne time to rehearse. We had to give ourselves time to finish the songs, at least to a point where we could actually have choreography designed for them. But then we had to let Danny choreograph them. We had to bring in other dancers to participate in those rehearsals. We had to design the stage. There were so many aspects of it that we were trying to initially do it all at once, but then at like pretty late in prep, we realized like we're going to fail. It just won't be what we want it to be. And it's a tall order no matter what. I am in awe of anyone who participates in the work of art that is putting on a stadium show, because it is immense. And the only way we could really do it was to just hire people who are really good at putting on these shows and sort of like ride their coattails as they helped us achieve what we were trying to do. And there were so many, like we had 5 days. We basically shot one song every day for 5 days.
So you're like in a state, all these are different venues. You're in a stadium.
We were in one stadium. And we had like 500 people in the crowd, and we just treated it like a real concert, like a five night residency for Mother Mary, where she played the same song every day over and over and over and over again. And it was, again, like physically demanding for everybody, and really it was pushing our resources to the breaking point, because to do that on top of a movie, it's like a movie unto itself, and a bigger movie unto itself. And we really were trying to make it, we just wanted it to feel real. We wanted it to feel spectacular. We wanted it to feel special. But we wanted it to feel believable. And so we just put everything we could into pulling that off. But at the same time, it was like by the skin of our, I mean, even like that's Holy Spirit 2. We have 2 Holy Spirits. And so
that's Holy Spirit.
That's Holy Spirit 2.
Oh.
So Holy Spirit 1, you hear early. And I love songs that have sequels. And we wanted this artist to be someone she's been a superstar for 20 years when we meet her. So I love the idea that she had a Holy Spirit earlier in her career. And then later on, she did a sequel to it. And that's what we hear in that climactic scene. And there was a lot of moving pieces to that, like a platform that rises up, that Anne rises up to the upper rafters of the stadium. And we storyboarded it pretty thoroughly. But at the same time, a lot of it is like, I have to give credit to Anne and to Danny who choreographed it, and to all the other dancers, and to our Steadicam operator. When you look at like the Eras tour, which they shoot over 2 nights, and I'm like, how did they get every angle perfectly? But when you go and watch the show live and you start counting the cameras, it is intense. And we have 2 cameras. And so we're just like, we're trying to treat it as if we have 20. And it really was, it was tough. I mean, it is a tall order shooting a stadium concert scene. And I would love to do it again, to be honest, because it was fun. And it was such a joy to just be in that audience and to watch this pop star truly come to life. Because we would just do the whole song every take. It was only, we'd cut them down to like a minute for the film. And so it would be like these minute-long performances that were truly spectacular. But then you gotta reset everybody back to 1, and we made it out. We got the songs on camera, but it was definitely a tall order.
This film in a lot of ways feels like, it's very well structured in the way that the visual language changes and evolves. It also feels though like this conceit is this license to almost delve into endless amounts of influences and filmmaking and different, and to kind of go big and bold.
I don't know if I would call it a license to, but it definitely it became,
rewards it.
It became a repository for everything I was interested in, basically. And yet I wanted it to feel distinct in its own way, but so much like everything I love is in this movie. And I held back as much as I could because I didn't want to just go, I mean, that's why the movie's so maximalist, because I just ultimately was like, this has to blossom into the most me movie I can possibly make. That's what I'm doing here. Whether I wanted to that one night in Dublin 7 years ago or not, like that's what I'm doing. I'm making the most me movie I possibly can. And it is, it is very intentional. Like there's decisions we made that were so challenging to, like Andrew and I, when we were filming the first leg of the shoot, we were, for the first 20 minutes of the movie, we're like, don't move the camera. Aside from that opening concert scene, we're just like, don't move the camera, because if we wait until minute 27 or whatever it is, it's going to pay off and allow us to then move to another scale, and then we can take it up a notch from there. But our instinct so often when we were on set doing these like amazing dialogue scenes with Annie and Michaela was like, ooh, let's push in, let's dolly, let's track. And we were like, no, we've got to hold back. And so there's a tremendous amount of restraint in the film. We were constantly like, let's not give it all away all at once. But by the end of it, I've done everything I've ever wanted to do.
It's funny. You could see Red Shoes. You could see all these beautiful old British horror films. It's
totally like it's, I mean, I definitely went into it thinking like, this has a Gothic hammer. I called it my goth movie, which is not, it's got a lot of goth vibes, but it also is very Gothic. And I wanted it to have, even like the opening when she pulls up to the house, like there's a big flash of lightning. It's meant to feel not quite like Rebecca, the opening of Rebecca, but any movie, where a character pulls up to a dark Victorian manor and on a stormy night, it's very, very Gothic in that way.
That concept of what was originally the one set.
The barn? Yeah.
But it becomes this wonderful thing to just fly out of and move into a different space. I don't know if it was conceived in that way.
It wasn't. I wrote it, again, when we were in Ireland making The Green Knight, one of our locations was an old medieval barn, and we built sets in it. It was an incredible space, and we used it for a lot of different sets in that movie. And so, again, I just was like, well, we'll shoot the movie there. This is where this movie is set. When we got around to actually making the movie, I thought we would build it. We'd build it and make it exactly what we wanted it to be. But for various reasons, we also started looking at locations. And I was like, we'll never find a location that, you know, gives us what I'm looking for. But we found in Bonn, Germany, this barn. I remember seeing the photos of it and just thinking like, wait, go back to that one. And then just sighing, being like, okay, that's we have to shoot the movie there, like just from that photograph. And it was logistically challenging because it was a long drive to get there, but it's a 13th century barn. The date in which it was built is, you know, scratched into the beams in Roman numerals from whoever, you know, whoever built it centuries ago. And it's immense. We couldn't have built something that big. It's also surrounded by a moat, which made it very difficult to light for Andrew and Rena. But the vibe in that room, in that space, it was haunted. It felt very haunted, and it felt very comforting at the same time. And it had a lot of drama to it. There was a lot of narrative built into the architecture that we could take advantage of, both in the geography of it, but just also in the feeling and the way that we could light it. And we had not intended to do the sort of surreal transition into the past that we ultimately did. Like, those scenes were all meant to be shot on location. It was going to be we were going to have a tour documentary on top of the concert film, on top of the two-hander chamber piece. But we couldn't find locations that would afford us the ability to do it the way we wanted to. So we started to just think about what's another way to tackle this? How else can we solve this problem? And we looked at the architecture of that barn and realized, like, we can use this space to travel through time. And indeed, that architecture now shows up in the concerts too. Like, it goes forwards and backwards. It really
probably
became
the advantage of that break too. Allows
definitely like because of that break, we were like, okay, how can we turn our concerts into a reflection of everything that you're about to see and experience in this film?
Not to oversimplify, but Mother Mary shows up. I need a dress.
That's the log line. That's the synopsis of the movie.
I need a dress, and I don't want to ruin it for people. I wanted you to talk about that process of creating, because again, I imagine it's like the songs. There's certain things you got to hit, and it's got to be the payoff. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
The dress that they are making was certainly described in the script, but not in great detail. I'm a tremendous fan of fashion and haute couture, and I love watching runway shows, even though I dress pretty much exclusively in Lululemon and Rag & Bone, but I have been a fan of Iris Van Herpen for a long time. And when I was thinking about like a designer who could, you know, like when I was thinking of examples of what that dress might look like, I naturally just thought of her work. And as we were putting the movie together, I had an opportunity to share the script with her, and she read it and instantly not only, you know, liked it, but understood it to a degree that I did not, because I'm not a designer and I do not dress people. I'm not someone who participates in that exchange between a subject and the person who's putting these beautiful clothes on them. But she knows what that's like. She knows what it's like to create a work of art for someone to wear. And it's a really intimate and beautiful and highly charged way of expressing yourself, because you're making something that is personal to you, but you have to let someone else wear it. That's beautiful in and of itself. Like, idea of giving over this thing that you've made to someone else and letting them be the vessel for it is very potent. But she got that, and she got the script on a very deep level. And so we met again over Zoom initially and talked about it. And then she went and started working on designs. And a few months later, Bina Daigler, our costume designer, and we went to Amsterdam to meet with her. We went to her atelier, and she had this wall of just all these red dresses that she had designed. And almost instantly, we all just were like, oh, that's it. That's the one. And it was exactly what it represented the movie. It was the movie in dress form. Matthew Barney is one of my heroes. And I love that his movies are the means by which his sculptures are produced. And for me, this movie is represented by that dress. Like, that dress and the movie are the one and the same to me. And we made the movie to arrive at that dress, both on screen, but also you can go look at it. It's going to be on display in Brooklyn. And,
where is it? Is it going to be in?
Iris is having a retrospective, like all of her work, and that dress will be there. And that, like, to me, that's the same as going to see the movie in a lot of ways.
Well, they should still go see the movie.
They should, yes. Go see the movie too.
I have a sense, because you kind of don't want to push you on this, but it's something that we've actually been talking about a little bit internally and asking each other. There is a lot of build up for spooky action. And so a direct question is that the song we're hearing in the end credits?
No, it's not. It's not.
not.
But the key to hearing that song is in Sam explains how to hear that song earlier in the film. It's a movie that I don't want to presuppose that anyone's going to go see it a second time, but I hope they do. But
they should.
Sam explains the movie thoroughly, step by step. Within the first 20 minutes of the movie, she explains what the movie is, and then she explains how to participate with the movie throughout. The dialogue is always, it's in some ways a very literal movie. It's the least literal movie of all time, perhaps, but it will explain, it will teach you how to hear that song. And that song is in the movie, but it is, I'll leave it for Sam to explain.
But under a different title.
No, it's
okay.
I don't mean to be coy but it is important to me that song be represented in the film. And it is.
Okay. I paused the credits last night to look. And I would say,
yes.
But someone smarter than me will be able to decode that when we watch it again. But David, thank you. Another big swing that, like, I
can't stop making them.
Just the desire to take the swing is, I think, something that should be applauded. But the fact that this one really kind of comes together
again,
is
it was
wonderful.
It was supposed to be so simple.
Maybe you should fool yourself and say I'm going to make a really complex movie, and then
that's what I should do. Because like the movie that I'm making next, I think is also ridiculously simple. It's so small, and I'm like, wait a second, what am I not looking at right now? What am I not? What are the Have I accidentally turned the character into a pop star without realizing it?
Does A24 now know the drill at this point? Is that they know that it's going to start off one thing and become a different?
I like to think that I hope that they're like, well, yeah, this is exactly what we signed up for. Mm-hmm. Usually they happen a little bit more quickly than this one. This one got distended a little bit, but I look at it now and I'm like, well, this is the script. It is, word for word, pretty much the screenplay. So there's no surprises, but the feel of the movie, the vibe of the movie, it's hard to put in a box, for sure.
Well, congratulations again.
Thank you very much.